I just went through my checklist just to make sure I didn't forget anything. And I did hit the record button. So for everybody out there, instructors and students, this session is being recorded so that later on, other students who have a time conflict, and there are many, can come back and view the session. Uh, I want to be respectful of everybody's time and get started. Hi, my name is Wen Yen, and I'm an instructor in the Business and Accounting Division at Central Piedmont. And we are so happy today to kick off our Business and Accounting Week with Karen Kitzmiller. She grew up with a realtor mom and a builder dad. And for 13 years, she worked in the corporate world for International Paper and First Union Bank, which then later merged with Wachovia. That background provided a great foundation for success in the real estate industry. Karen's had her real estate license since 2007. And we're really excited that she is able to join us today to share what it's really like to work as a real estate broker. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you for doing that research on my background. I appreciate that. I'm really happy to be today. So would you like me to just kind of launch into sort of getting into the business, a little bit of background there, or?
Yeah, we often hear from students. They come into our program, and I'm sure many of my colleagues will say the same. That sometimes students will come in and they say, I want to work in the corporate world. I want a desk job. I'm looking for stability. And then at the same time, we have students who are more entrepreneurial and they're kind of inspired by watching HGTV and shows on there about real estate. And um, they are looking to become entrepreneurs in the real estate world. So since you have done both, could you give our students an idea of what kind of skills and experience you gained from working in the corporate world, and what made you want to leave that in order to strike out in the real estate industry?
Excellent. So I was that person who said, I want stability, I want corporate. Yes, my mom was a real estate agent. My dad was a builder, very entrepreneurial and had some struggles. And that's probably why I said I want stability in my life because I just, saw the struggles we had growing up and with, money or whatever the case may be, raising, my parents raising four kids. And so, that was just the route I took. I had a degree. My degree from university was in journalism. So I first started in the corporate world with International Paper in Memphis, and then we moved to the Charlotte area in '99, and that's when I started working for First Union, and it was in their corporate communications department. So I did a lot of speech writing for the executives I supported, press releases, employee communications, messaging, that sort of stuff, and it was a great career. I always knew I wanted to probably get my real estate license at some point. I didn't know if I wanted to use it, but my mom got sick with lung cancer in 2006. And my managers at Wachovia at the time, which is now Wells Fargo, were awesome. And they're saying, go and spend time with your mom. She lived in Myrtle Beach at the time. You can work from there. And, it was fine. I mean, they were super supportive. I had a great trajectory of a career path at the bank, and it was a fabulous place to work. So fast forward in 2007, my mom passed away March 21st, and I started real estate school March 28th. And so I gave my notice at the bank, but stayed on to help find my replacement. So I did bank work during the day, went to real estate school at night on Mondays and Wednesdays. And then when I got my license in June, that's when I officially separated and then moved into real estate. So as far as what the benefits were from working in the corporate world, it is real life experience. It's building relationships. I supported our commercial bank and small business bank. So those bankers were working with business owners. And so I saw how they did a lot of like pipeline management and managed their businesses and their relationships to get repeat business and referral business. So I think a lot of that was really very, very helpful when I started in real estate. In real estate, we are all 1099 employees, and have viewed this as this is my business since day one. I don't work for anybody. I'm building a business and it's my business. So I think a lot of that background in corporate really helped there.
Great. Thank you for that. And this session, just for all of the students who are on, this session is really for all of you to ask all your questions. This is very informal. Whatever questions you have, please go ahead and drop them in the chat. If you would rather just ask yourself, just put in the chat, I have a question, and I'll see it, and I will call on you to mute yourself, unmute yourself so that you can ask your question directly. So please don't be shy. Karen is here to share her experience and answer all your questions for you. So just to get everybody warmed up, I think one of the concerns that students today have is the very high cost of education. And for those who are interested in getting their broker's license, you certainly can take classes without going to college in order to do this. I also know from you that you've got two daughters. One is in graduate school and one's in college. What do you see as the value of a college education in going to a field that doesn't necessarily require it?
That's a good question, because I mean, I do believe that we sometimes we don't have enough people who want to go in the trades and everything else that doesn't always require a college education. I think with real estate, there are, I bet everybody on this call knows at least 4 or 5 real estate agents, and whether they're part-time or full-time or brand new or been in it forever. And I think when you gain a college education, that really helps with critical thinking skills and problem solving and those sorts of things that are really, really valuable, whether you're in real estate or any other business, quite frankly. But I think that does give people a leg up. It's not to say I'm looking to bring another team member on, and he's actually in Raleigh, and he, I don't think, had a college education, but I think he's going to be a dynamite agent. But this is going to be a second career for him as well, so he's already had some experience out in the workforce and whatnot. But I think it just does perhaps give a leg up in terms of, like I talked about, the critical thinking, problem solving, those sorts of things that are important for clients.
Great, thank you. Um, I hear pretty often a lot of students will say, I really want to go into business for myself and flip houses. And when they come to me and talk about it, their concept of doing this comes from TV, comes from watching shows like Property Brothers. How realistic are those types of shows? I'm sure you are familiar with them. And, and what do they leave out?
A lot. Um, I always love the people who will say, I want to go into real estate because I just love looking at houses. And there's so much more involved. There's so much liability, potential liability that we need to be concerned about. And even if you are not a real estate broker and you just want to go in and flip houses for yourself, also a ton of liability, whether it's title issues. Maybe you're buying a house at the courthouse steps. There's a lot of risk in that, because the previous owner might have had a big tax lien that, without a title search, you're not going to know about. And the tax lien stays with the property. And so little things like that are just, you know, that the TV shows don't show. I mean, I happen to love like Million Dollar Listing LA and Million Dollar Listing New York. I'll be honest with you. Um, but more for the entertainment value of it and looking at the nice properties, I will admit. But at the same time, I see sometimes how they're negotiating and, it just, but it's not realistic. And, they have so many people behind the scenes, whether it's Property Brothers or Million Dollar or Sunset, Selling Sunset, or any of the other ones, on HGTV, that there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that is just not broadcast because it wouldn't be interesting.
Could you talk a little bit about um, who are all of the other professionals that you work with?
Mm.
You're the 1099 worker and you work for yourself, but obviously there are many other professionals that without their input, you couldn't make the transaction happen. Can you talk a little bit about those people and how to build relationships so that you can have reliable people that you can work with?
Yep. So it starts with a firm. I mean, we all tend to affiliate with a firm. I'm affiliated with Remax Executive. There's a ton around the area. So it starts there. And if I'm on the buyer side, if I'm working with a buyer, then really my most important partner is a mortgage lender. And because it doesn't make sense for that buyer or for me to be out looking at houses before we know how much they can spend. And so that's the very first and probably my primary partner is mortgage. And then once we are under contract on a house, I have home inspectors, I have relationships with closing attorneys, real estate attorneys, title companies, home, land surveyors. And and back to talk about the home inspections, I mean, that's, the general home inspection, the people who look for termites, the people who look for radon gas, if it's on a well or septic, the people who are inspecting the well and then looking at the septic system to be sure it's okay. We oftentimes have to work with jurisdictions. If I talk about a septic system, what does the septic permit look like? I need to know how to look that up to make sure it's an appropriate sized septic system for the house. Um, and of course, there's agents on the other side. So that's just, and then, if I'm working either on the buyer or seller side, it's important for me to have my arsenal of people, my painters, my roofers, my contractors, my handymen, um, flooring people, remodelers. So it is in relationships are key. I am part of a normal regular networking group. We meet every week and and I view a lot of those people as my team behind me and I trust them and I refer them all the time. And so that also helps so that when I have a client, they're going to prioritize my business sometimes because I do send them a lot. But the relationships, not only with those other business people, are critical, but from um, a growing your business perspective, I'm all about relationships. 95% of my business is referral from past clients and from my referral network. And I spend a lot of time and energy and money making sure those relationships stay um, close because I view this as I want to be, once I'm your real estate agent once, I want to be a real estate agent for life. So, that's my goal in running my business, but it's all about relationships.
Okay, great. Um, one of the questions that I got in asks, can you set up an LLC that takes out the mortgage and is the owner and seller for properties?
hmm And oftentimes that's recommended because if you own investment property and you have it in the name of an LLC, that can put a little bit of a wall in terms of risk from your personal assets. Now, those are great questions for CPA and closing attorney. That sometimes gets above my pay grade. And then also, if you transfer it into an LLC, you have to make sure that there's no if there's a loan on the property, that's okay with the mortgage company as well, because you'd be transferring title. So there are a lot of questions, but in general, speaking in general, it is best to, yes, if you have investment property, holding it in an LLC is beneficial.
Another question that came in is, how do you manage inconsistency in monthly income?
That's a tough one for a lot of people. When I went into this in 2007, thankfully my husband stayed in the corporate world, so we had regular paycheck health insurance, because that's another thing. You don't have health insurance as a business owner unless you buy it yourself. Um, so being able to, and I'll get back to relationships too. The faster you can build a business that just keeps feeding itself will build that consistency. But if you're a new agent coming in, it's a really good idea to have, at least 6 months of reserves saved up, because you're not going to be making much of any money. I think the average National Association of Realtors, on average, an agent makes like $30,000 either their first year, or that's the average for every year. So it's not a lot to live on, because that $30,000 is a gross amount before taxes, before health insurance, before everything else. So, but it's a really, that is something to really dive into. And if you don't have a spouse or partner who has that stable income, that's where that nest egg really needs to come into play. And the whole relationship focus, and getting out there and hustling and meeting with people and making sure you're educating them on how to refer you, and all of that stuff.
All right. Um, Sometimes we have students who are interested in real estate, but they think that because there's mortgages and financing involved, that you need to be really good at math. Can you share how much math is needed to be good at being a real estate broker, and how much of that is um, done by you rather than your mortgage lender?
I don't do any of that mortgage math, so there's very little. Um, Back in the day, like when I was growing up, realtors did a lot of pre-qualifying of clients up front, which we don't do that anymore. We just leave that all I need to know is what you want to spend and what you can spend. And oftentimes those are I don't really ever recommend anybody goes to the top of what they can spend. Let's think about a budget here. So I don't have to do any of that qualification myself. But that's why I rely on my partner. The only other, I think about situations right now. We're in a rising interest rate market. I'm working with a lot of buyers who are having trouble finding home. We might be writing 6, 7, 10 offers on properties before we win one. And so it's taking longer and longer for buyers to be able to purchase. And a lot of buyers start thinking, well, I'm going to just duck out of the market and buy next year. And so helping them understand, sometimes a back of an envelope, what that might mean. If the interest rates go up 1 percentage point or 2 percentage points between now and next year, what does your affordability look like? And so sometimes being able to do that math, or at least not do the math, but have the concept that it's going to impact them, or the impact of renting from just that simple stuff. But from a mortgage math perspective, no, we don't have to do that.
And your response there ties into another question that come in.
Mm.
How do you manage these things that are beyond your control, like the interest rates, like the economy slowing down, or like all of the Wall Street investors coming in with their cash offers when your buyers are regular people?
Yeah. My mission in my business is to do three things really well: that educate, serve, and protect my clients. So a lot of that management comes in the education phase, and where we talk about really what's happening in the market, what some strategies are for trying to win some of these multiple offer situations, and just helping them understand really a clear picture without being like fearful, if you will. I like them to be well informed. And you buying and selling real estate is one of the most stressful things that people go through. And so my goal, I always tell people, your stress level is going to increase, but my goal is to kind of help it do this rather than big up, big down, big up, big down, because this is a lot tougher on people. And I think the education piece really comes into play there. And then there are going to be some things that just whip us out of left field that we just had no idea were going to happen. But hopefully, the trust is built up there now with the education and everything that I bring to the table with my clients, that we can just kind of weather it together. I've often been told that they're like, how do you stay so calm through all this? Is so stressful, and you've been the calming force around this, and this is so, and that's really nice to hear, because it just means I'm doing my job.
Great. And since you just mentioned things coming out of left field, um, somebody has asked, what has it been like as an agent this last year? And I'm assuming this is referring to all of the challenges that have come up because of the pandemic. And what have these challenges been?
So Charlotte's been a really interesting place. Nationwide last year, about 1% of the sales were to investors across the country. Charlotte experienced 25% of our sales were to investors. So there are a couple of markets in the country, Charlotte, Jacksonville, Phoenix, Austin, Portland, that are really high on these investors. And it's a lot of the institutional, it's not mom and pop. You're going to go buy 1, 2 investment properties. It's the people who are buying 5,000 properties in a market. And that has had one of the biggest impacts in our marketplace in the last couple of years, as has the building. After the crash in 07, 08, builders stopped building. Well, they really slowed down to probably less than 50% of what they were building to keep up with normal population growth. And I think this is the first year since that time that they're actually going to build enough homes. And so we're dealing with that. And then Charlotte's a really popular place, people moving here every day. I think we used to be like 120 per day. I think we're like 80 to 100 people per day moving here to our MSA. So all of that combines. I've mentioned to Dr. Sullivan before, this is my perfect storm, because it all combines to really create a crisis for us. And so we've just been, and then on the real estate side, more and more people are entering the real estate business. And so there's fewer and fewer business to go around, and competition. So it's been a really interesting place. But this is where, again, if you get into a business for yourself and you try to do it the right way to build for stability and long term, that's when you're going to survive more. But that's a kind of a little snapshot of what the market's been like in the past year.
Great. One question that came up is for somebody who is already in school and working on a degree, do you think that there is any one particular area, such as business or anything else, that is more complementary if the student is looking to later go into real estate and get their license?
I think business is always fantastic, because you can, just like with any business, you have working on your business and working in your business. And when you're a solopreneur, your business can take over, and you just start working in your business, and from day to night, and you don't work on your business. I think having a degree in business helps you already have a leg up and understand some of the concepts of being a business owner or running a business, and knowing, kind of where you need to manage your weak spots. I always say you play to your strengths and manage your weaknesses by outsourcing or whatever the case may be, or getting someone help. And I think if you have a business degree, you already kind of know that stuff, or you start learning that stuff a lot earlier than just kind of those of us who didn't have a business degree and we had to rely on business books or leaders or whatever, listening to podcasts or whatever. So I think a business degree is super key. Of course, I'm partial to communications and whatnot because I think clear communications is absolutely critical as well. But I would still put business above that.
Uh, One question we have here is whether individuals that work for new home builders, whether those are also people with real estate licenses, or do they
They
need
don't
a real estate license?
They don't have to be. If they are a W-2 employee of that home builder, they do not have to have a license. They still represent the interests of that home builder, not of the buyers who walk into the model homes. But they can't, um, what they can do is a little bit limited. They're still not allowed to really negotiate on behalf of the builder because you need to have a real estate license to do that. But that is a good option for people who want some experience in the business, but also want that steady paycheck. Because the people who are in the model homes do, they have a set schedule and they are W-2 employees. And I don't know the percentage of those who have licenses versus those who do not. But it could be that, you don't have a license, you start working for a builder, but then you want to get your license so that you can maybe eventually do what you want with it.
What would you say are good indicators that a particular area or region is going to increase in value? And how would you go about finding that kind of trend?
Oof, that's a good question. I mean, population growth, business growth, where our business is moving. Um, right now it happens, the Sun Belt has been pretty popular for people. And just stay on top of, taxes, where are the taxes lower? Where, for instance, South Carolina has a tax on investors that if you don't live in the property you own, you pay a higher real estate tax than people who are owner occupants. And so I just, but I think it's mainly, where are the businesses? Where are the jobs? Where is unemployment lower? Because that's typically where people are flocking to when they're going to need housing.
What would you say are the important skills that really help an agent be successful? And is there a particular type of personality that is preferable?
Um, Organization is important. Um, Self-starter, because you're working for nobody's telling you, go do this, go do that. So, being able to get out there and do it on your own. Um, certainly being personable is a benefit, because you're having to get to know people and you have to get to know people of all walks of life and all personalities and all communication styles. So being open to learning how to deal with that better, if I look at the core values of my team, one of them is lifelong learning. And because that's important because we're meeting different people every day. So um, and then just the hustle, you really have to hustle, so having a good amount of ambition is really important.
Here's a question for the buyer side. So for our students who, they're still working on their education, they may be still deciding on what career to go into, but they may wish to purchase a home sometime in the future. What kinds of things do you suggest that they plan for, so that they can be financially prepared when the day comes and they find the right property or they want to make that first purchase?
Protect your credit like it's your life. um, be very, very mindful of your credit score and paying everything on time, and if you hit a hiccup in the road, work with whoever you owe money to kind of work out, communicate with them to because, that just can be a better option than just ignoring everything. But protect your credit like no other. And certainly saving money. When it used to be 20% down payment, and you don't need to have a 20% down payment. There are loans, VA loans are 100% loans. You can get FHA loans for 3.5% down. You can get some conventional loans for 3% down. So you don't need a lot for a down payment. I recommend you get as much as you can for a down payment, because that's only going to position you better for the future. And then not to spend all your money on your house. If you're approved to buy a $100 house, don't spend $100 on the house, because you're going to have expenses after that that are going to cost you money. So don't, you know, I tell buyers, you could be pre-approved at $5 million. And if you want to buy a $250,000 house, I'm not going to look at anything above a $250,000 house, because they guide and they know what their budget, what a comfortable budget is for them. But you don't want to be house poor either. But the credit and building that cash, as you can, are two very important things.
Great. Another question about commercial versus residential. Is there a difference in the skill set that you need to represent buyers and sellers for residential property as compared to commercial property?
Yes. I'm allowed to sell commercial even though I focus on residential, my license gives me the ability to sell commercial. I don't sell commercial because it is not my skill set. I don't, commercial, you have to really know a lot more about zoning restrictions and how to change zoning. If you want, I see a question in there about a builder, why would I build a single home instead of multiple apartment buildings? That's a zoning thing. The land that you're sitting on might only allow for one home, not a multifamily. But there are some cases where you can get that changed. And so to be in commercial, you really have to understand that. You have to understand how commercial leases work. And again, I could do that, but it just doesn't make a lot of sense for my business to try to focus on both, when focusing just on the residential works pretty well for me.
And one of our students would like to know what advice you have if they don't really know what they want to do with their degree after college, but they're working on their business degree.
Mm-hmm. I'd say take your time, because there are so many people who start out one way and end up a completely different way by the time they retire. And having said that, it's okay to try different things, and maybe you try the stable and corporate route first, and while you work on some other things and try to figure out what your niche is going to be in life. And but it's just, your first, if your first answer isn't the right answer, it's all right. That's just, chalk it up to learning and chalk it up to experience and just being better in whatever you do next. But I don't think, like with my children, my daughter's in grad school for student affairs and my other's going communications and PR. And I have no idea. And I'm pretty sure that their first real job in the real world is not going to be the same as what their last job is going to be. And that's okay.
And this is a bit related, but if for students who may not know what they want to do, or even for those who really do have an interest in real estate, what kind of part-time jobs exist for students to try out so that they can kind of get a feel for what working in real estate might be like?
There a lot of agents out there have assistants, and some are unlicensed assistants, others are licensed assistants. The difference just being what the tasks that can be completed. So for instance, if I have an unlicensed assistant, that person can't show any property for me or open a lockbox, but that person can help with paperwork and go put a sign in a yard or meet the photographer to kind of see what all of that is about. And then that person can also be included on, appointments or shadowing. And so that, can, I think, be very helpful for someone to truly see what the day to day looks like before they make a leap. And if it's part time, then yes, then they can have another part time job and, be earning income at both ideally. So,
All right. And for those who do admire the very fancy multi-million dollar properties, how do you go about landing a listing for a multi-million dollar property? And how long do you think it takes for a new agent to get to that point?
I think if we look at just listing in general, working with sellers, most agents start out and they work with buyers for the first good portion of time in their business. Um, and then once those buyers start selling, that's kind of when you start building up your listing base. And with a luxury, sometimes it's right place at right time. Sometimes it's where you live or who you socialize with. Um, it's a combination of everything. But and as far as timing is concerned, there's no right time. I'm sure there's probably a lot of first year agents who have $1 million listing right now. But in general, it's my, like, for instance, my average price point with clients has steadily come up as the years have gone in because the people who bought a first home with me in 2009 might be on their fourth home now, and it's a bigger home. So it's just kind of, and that naturally happens, but it usually takes a few years to really get established as working with only sellers versus buyers. And then that luxury market, you know whether it's a combination of advertising to those people and just kind of branding yourself as that and kind of fake it till you make it, which does happen enough in this industry, and that's fine. I mean, that, as long as you back it up with true results, then that's perfect. But it's a matter of, yeah, just that experience and just kind of focusing that direction. I know that's not a really great answer, but that's all I got on that one.
That's great. Uh, can you talk a little bit about um, what kind of marketing skills you use in growing your business? And also talk about how social media whether it has changed how you do business.
It has. And I'm actually looking for a new social media company right now. I outsource that for the most part. So my social media has been really important. And I first started working with a company probably 7 years ago, um, who helped me with the branding of, like, my Facebook is Karen Kitzmiller House to Home. And we wanted it to be more about tips for homeownership versus look how awesome Karen is and look at these homes I'm selling. And because I just wanted to be able to provide value versus, we could sprinkle it in with here's a new closing and whatnot. But that speaks to the reputation. It's just reputational. You can put out a client testimonial every so often, and that just helps as you get the followers to help with the, Karen's helpful, and oh look, she does a good job too. And then on the website front, just having the content change enough so that you're continuing to be high up in the Google results. Um, I do get, every now and then I'll get business in just from people finding me online. And it has, this company that I was working with, we stopped during the pandemic. And so, like I said, I need another dynamic company to help get me back up there because I have seen a dip in that piece. Um, so I think it's hugely important. Um, all of my marketing, you'll never see my face on a billboard, and you won't see me really in a printed publication. My marketing dollars go toward social and website and to loving on my database of clients and partners.
Since social media and the internet has made, visual images so important, um, how important is it for you to have an eye for things like interior design or how that property might look?
Mhm. And I left out one of my very important partners is my home stager. Um, I'm a stickler. I mean, and it all comes back to your brand and how you present yourself online. What your listings look like when you put them out there reflects on you as an agent. So with my listings, I actually pay for staging for my sellers in most cases because it just the stager has furniture and things that she knows. When you walk in a door, here's where you want a buyer's eyes to go, and here's that white space that you need in order for a buyer to put themselves in the house. So it starts with that, and then professional photography is non-negotiable for me. The professional photography is a must with proper lighting. They have the right cameras, the right lenses, um, and just little marketing things like the floor plans that I do for my listings are upgraded floor plans because they have all the walls drawn in and the room dimensions. Because when someone in Utah is looking at a listing of mine, I want them to be able to place their furniture. If you just have a big box, they can't place their furniture. So it's the little things that all come back to your brand and are extremely important. But yes, back to your question, I also have to have an eye. If I meet a photographer at a listing and the toilet seat's up, I got to put that toilet seat down. Or if you've got a beautiful kitchen and some, glaring red towel hanging on the stove handle, I'm going to take the towel away because I know that on photography, the eyes are going to go right there and they're not going to look at the beautiful countertops. So you still have to have a sense of your own in additional to, and some people can't, they're not going to go pay for a stager, which is fine. I didn't pay for a stager for a long time for my listings, but you know, so you still do have to have some of that ability to help your clients prepare appropriately.
Um, does the car that you drive impact your ability to get higher end clients?
I don't think so. Hopefully, they're going to judge you based on the value you're bringing to them. And I know that's a big hopefully. And, there probably are some clients out there who are just like, you come rolling up in a Porsche, you must be really good at what you do, and versus pulling up in a, I don't know. I mean, it's crazy, but I can't say that I feel like I've won and lost business based on the car I drive, but it is actually a discussion point. I'm on a national Facebook group with other realtors, and this has been the topic of conversation. And also like who wears jeans on appointments. Well, I'm a jeans wearer. I like comfort, and so it's just all those little things. Just like some people would never be caught dead. I'm like, "Oh, I want to work with people who are comfortable with me who I am, so it's okay."
That's that's great. Um, so another question, it starts off that I have heard that there is never a dull moment in real estate. Can you share some of the interesting, funny, cool, or scary things that may have happened during your career?
All right. So I've done foreclosure work for a bank, and I had a listing in Wilmore, which is right next to South End, and I had two listings up there at one time, and one of the listings had a squatter, and he was just, I mean, because where this house was, there were some known drug dealers right next door. I mean, because I had the police officers who walked that beat. I had their information, and so every time I would go to the house, I'd have one of them meet me there, so I didn't go in by myself. But it appeared that whoever was coming in was just showering. and they weren't doing any damage. So, and then I had another house where we had squatters, and I showed up to meet an agent there. This was a short sale. I showed up to meet an agent there, and we were unlocking the lockbox, and we hear this thump upstairs, and we're like, oh. So I called the cops, and they came, and we're waiting for them, and we see this couple and their dog walk out from behind the house and start walking up the street as the police officers are coming down the street. I'm like, that's them, that's them. So I had to go, and the police got them, and I had to go and look them in the eye and say, you're not allowed to trespass on this house, because then I was giving them notice. And so those are some not so fun situations, because I'm sure you all have heard of agents being harmed, whether they sit in an open house and someone comes in and assaults them. It's you really have to be concerned and keep thinking about your surroundings and how you do things and how you position yourself. I'm not one for going to meet a stranger to show them a house. We can meet at my office. I can get a copy of your driver's license. And if that ever happens to anybody on this call, please don't be offended. That agent is just trying to be careful and smart about his or her safety. Um, so, you know, um, I don't know that any of those are fun examples, but the real fun times are when you get to call your buyer and say, "Yep, we beat out 10 other offers and you won." That's the most fun part.
All right, great. Um, when you think about the entire transaction, do you see yourself as a project manager?
Mhm. For sure. No doubt. Um, and we have in this business too, there are people who are also transaction coordinators, and that could be another option for someone to get some experience. Whereas, if I put a house under contract, I can hand it off to the transaction coordinator, and they can handle scheduling and paperwork and those sorts of things. I come back in if it comes time to like negotiate repairs or that sort of thing. But if you choose not to do that, then yes, there's a lot at stake. If we need to make sure we're managing the deadline. Our clients are putting money at risk, and if we go beyond a certain deadline, they're going to have some more money at risk of losing if we don't make decisions by that deadline, for instance, and how to coordinate and make sure everything's happening within that time frame. So yes, it is very heavy on project management, which is why I mentioned organization is key to being successful too. Or hire it out if that's not a strong suit.
What what do you think are the kind of like the top things that you enjoy about your profession, and maybe what are a couple of the most frustrating aspects?
Top is meeting people and like building my friend base. I have so many clients who have become friends, and and it's just knowing that I got to play a role in a part of their life that was hopefully very important to them, um, and help them guide them through that process. It's or whether it's buying their first home or selling their first home, that's always really rewarding, and just getting to know all different kinds of people. Um, Frustrating is, some of those things that we can't control, the market forces, this situation we're in now with investors and lack of inventory has been super frustrating for a lot of people, because you're working harder and harder. And I'll be honest, the commission pressure, people are offering agents less and less commission. Um, but they're working harder and harder. So that's tough. Um, and then when if I'm representing somebody and a person on the other side makes a crazy decision or won't do something that just seems so logical, and just having to manage my client and they're whether they're frustrated or hurt or sad, um, I take a lot of that on my shoulders, which I shouldn't, but that's just my personality, and so that's rough. And and you have to present this good. I come home and talk to my husband like because I've got to get it out somehow, and I'm not going to do it with my clients sitting there. So I mean it's hard, and luckily he's a business owner now too, and so we kind of do that for each other. But um, that's it. It can take a toll. So you need to have an outlet for so that you're not taking it out on your clients.
Okay. Um, one of the challenges that that I think we see right now is, especially through the pandemic, people are, a little bit more isolated. They have been, you know, a, not not necessarily as social as they used to be. And you've mentioned a few times that maintaining relationships and building relationships is so important. What are some suggestions that you have for students about things that they can do as young people to get them to either, work on these relationships or to get more comfortable with the kind of networking that is necessary in this type of career?
Um, just start connecting with people. If someone pops into your brain and you're thinking about them, just call them because there's probably a reason you're thinking about them. And if nothing else, be like, hey, you just popped into my brain and I just want to see how you're doing. Because people are starving for connection at the moment. Um, and one of the things I do is I do little pop by gifts for some clients, and that gives me an excuse to go and see them in person. And during the pandemic, I would leave it and do a little video message on text and be like, hey, I just popped by and I just left you something on your door. But now, I'm finding that I can go and spend more time and chit chat because they're starving for connection. And but I think, in terms of getting started, it's just taking the first step. You're not going to be, and I'm not by any means, you're not going to be perfect at it overnight. And but just taking a little step. What you can, Meetup has a ton of groups out there. Um, if anybody ever wants to come visit my networking group, let me know. We always love having visitors. We meet every Tuesday morning. But that's a ton of other business owners in the room, and just kind of seeing the interaction, and that yes, everybody's just human, but it's just taking the first step.
That's great, and thank you very much for inviting our students to your networking group. That's a great
Mhm.
connection that they could make. Um, I think this will probably be our last question. How do you handle selling homes that are in less than optimal condition?
Um, we do what we can. And, if the seller is in a position to move out, then that's when I can bring in my stager and make it beautiful. If it's like for instance, if someone has a rental that they want to sell, an investment property that they want to sell, but the renter is in place, you just do what you can and you try with the photography. You just try to give as many recommendations, but at the end of the day, it's their home and I'm the one intruding in it. So I just have to, try to put our best foot forward with what we have to work with. And that's little things where I mentioned before, I can take the red towel off the stove, I can close the toilet lids, I can tidy up a counter. But we just do the very best we can.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much for dropping in with us and sharing your time and your expertise. Um, Before we wrap up, I just want to share some information about resources that are available at CP if you are interested in getting into a career in real estate. Our corporate and continuing education area, specifically financial services, offers a number of courses that you can take in order to get your foot in the door. Um, We offer courses in real estate licensing, appraisal, and mortgage lending. And that QR code, if you just hold up your phone to it, it will take you directly to the website. And I'm also gonna pop that website into the chat for everybody. There we go. So that website goes to our CP website, and you can see the listing of all of the different courses that we offer. So I want to again thank you to Karen for joining us, and thank you to everybody else for also tuning in. For the instructors, I will be sharing a link to this session so that all your students who were not able to tune in can review the recording. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Professor Yen. And I also put my email address in the chat in case anybody has any questions. I'm always happy to respond. So I appreciate you letting me be part of your day today.
Thank you so much.